So tonight's show is very fun. We've been trying to do it for weeks, but things have put off really fun.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Sorry, Edgar. But
Sorry, Edgar.
and Kellee, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if anyone else knows this, that I first started my understanding Edgar Cayce when I was before I was developing a mediumship. I had an interest, if you will. And I went to a place called the Bodhi Tree Bookstore, which you know in West Hollywood, which is no longer there.
Yeah.
And I spent weekends there sitting in different corners of the subjects, whether it was near-death experiences or past life regression or Edgar Cayce. I'm like, who's Edgar Cayce? So Edgar Cayce, and he had an association, the Association of Research and Enlightenment. And I read There Was a River and several of books that he's done. And that's
that was his biography, right?
Biography.
Yeah.
That's when I first found out about him. And that was my cornerstone of my work when I started.
Wow. Wow. He's a really interesting fellow. He was born in 1877.
Really? Oh,
1877. Wow. March 18th. And I'll tell you something interesting, James, because I was curious. Yeah, and a true Pisces in Vedic astrology or Western astrology, a true Pisces. But he was also because I always have to kind of do my work here. He was a five of diamonds, and five of diamonds always relates to angels. Always.
Really?
And always. If somebody tells me, if I find out there are five of diamonds in the destiny readings that I do, I know that angels are around them and they work with angels. And Edgar Cayce began his work when he first saw, he was about your age, I think, when you saw your first angel. How old were you? About 6?
Oh, yeah, about that. Yeah, 6 or 7. Yeah.
He saw a woman that came to him as an angel, and she started talking to him. And he did tell his family, and they were pretty good about it. And he grew up, in like
right. He was a minister.
He was a Christian for sure. I don't know which one it was, but
if I remember correctly.
It could be.
Oh, let me find out. No.
Yeah. But he was from Kentucky.
Hopkinsville, right? Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky. And he started off as, he would go to school as a young boy. And it turns out that when he was about 10, he wasn't a great student. But when he was about 10, he came home and the teacher said to his father, your son's not doing very well in school. And the father got so mad at the son, at Edgar, that he was what we would call abusive, and hit him off the table and off the chair and knocked him out. And it was just really, really horrible. And when he was after he'd been hurt by his father, he actually, a woman came to him, the same angel that he had seen when he was young. And she said, "Don't worry. We're going to help you. And here's what we're going to do. You just go to sleep on top of your schoolwork and all the books, and we will give you all the information." And so then his father came in, and his father was mad that he was sleeping. And he said, "But I know the answers." And he said, "Oh, really? Yes. What?" And then he gave every single answer. And this went on for the rest of his schooling. He only went to school till 8th grade, but he knew everything that he needed to know, because he was told if he would sleep on the books or the information, it would come to him. And that's how he began his journey.
And just to go back a little bit, when he was a young boy, he worked at his father's dry goods store. And I think when he was a young boy, when I gathered, he always tried to please his father. Always, well, Pisces, of course, they want to be pleasing. And he was very sentimental, and he wanted to please his dad. I know that he wanted to please his dad, but I don't think Dad knew that. I don't think Dad understood that.
No, I don't think so.
He was also a photographer. He took up photography for a while.
When he was about 20, he became a photographer. Yeah. And that's how he was making his living. Yeah. And do you know why? He said, because I didn't have to speak. So he could see. Because one of the things that happened to him right before then.
I was just going to mention this.
Go ahead. No, you tell. You go ahead. You tell.
The laryngitis, right?
We had laryngitis. And so he went into a trance state, basically, or not a what would you call that kind of a state?
An altered state of consciousness.
Altered state. And he actually told his parents, I think, or who were taking care of him at the time, how to heal himself in a trance state.
That's right. I've heard that. Yes.
I mean,
I read about that years ago.
And he didn't speak, by the way, for 8 months.
That's right. He lost his voice. Correct. Correct. It's so Piscean, though, isn't it?
Well, and it's also so, as a medium, what happens so often to people, they often take, some weird, circuitous route to get to become a medium. It's the damnedest thing ever.
It's very true. I mean, I understand that one. I know
Me
that.
too.
I,
Weird.
I read this about Cayce also just today, which I was looking at, but I didn't know this before. He was living in that town, Hopkinsville, and that I guess there was an entertainer coming to town at the vaudeville or whatever the theater who was a hypnotist, and he wanted to see Edgar because he heard Edgar was ill. So here it is right here. His name was Hart, and he was entertaining at the Hopkinsville Opera House in 1901. Heard that Edgar Cayce was sick and asked if he could try to cure him. Cayce said yes. The entertainer tried to cure Cayce in front of an audience. Cayce was able to talk while in a hypnotic trance, but when he woke up, he could not talk. Hart hypnotized Cayce so that his voice would be normal after the trance, but Cayce's voice did not become normal. Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
First days
Wow.
of hypnosis, too, if you think about it. It goes back
Yes.
the beginning days of it, early pioneer days.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. There was another Al Lane, another hypnotist, tried to help Cayce have a normal voice. Lane asked Cayce to tell him the cause of the illness and its cure while in a trance. Cayce described what you were talking about. Cayce described his illness from a first-person plural point of view instead of the singular I. In later readings, he would usually start off with, "We have the body in the reading." Cayce said his voice loss was because of the psychological paralysis, and that could be fixed by increasing the blood flow to the voice box. Lang suggested that the blood flow would be increased, and Cayce's face turned red with blood, and his chest and turned bright red after 20 minutes. Cayce, still in a trance, said the treatment was over. When he woke up, his voice stayed normal. He would get sick again, but it was cured by Lang in the same way, and later he was cured perfectly. Wild.
That's amazing. Really amazing. I mean, his abilities were just
Staggering.
Staggering. Yeah, really. It's amazing to me. Wow.
Yeah, he. I'm going to read this too about his fame. He grew up in his fame grew as he grew up. He asked for people to give him money to support himself and his family. So that I remember this from a biography when I read, so that he could work full time. He continued to work in a trance state with the hypnotist all his life. His wife and oldest son later replaced Lane in this role. A secretary who's God bless Gladys Davis took notes. Many believe that Cayce had an affair with Miss Davis. I didn't hear that before later in his life. But a medical examination conducted after Cayce's death to treat Davis's uterine cancer allegedly showed that she was still a virgin at the time. Interesting.
Fun fact.
In 1929, he created the Cayce Hospital, created Virginia Beach. I think he started that with, wasn't it for asthma and polio or something?
And well, it was to help with homeopathic remedies, because he was getting into homeopathic remedies, and all these people in all these towns had no place to go for homeopathy. And so he actually opened up a hospital with 2 investors, and it was apparently running really well for 2 years. And then after 2 years, the investors couldn't afford to keep it anymore. And so he had to stop, and he was very sad about that. But that's when he moved into his readings.
Yeah, and I got to read something on this because it's pretty amazing here. He became famous in the United States in 1943 because an article in the Coronet magazine increased his readings to 8 times a day. Now, this is for all those mediums out there, people doing readings for people and healings. To try to keep up this caused problems with his health. To try to keep 8 a day, because going to that trance state, that altered state, takes a lot of exhaustion in the physical body. You have problems. The trance reading caused problems with Cayce's health, which was easily seen. On the times when he could not give a clear reading, he said it was because he was working under too great a pressure. In these cases, he always gave the money back to the person he was giving a reading to. And he predicted his own death 4 days before he died. Yeah. In January 3rd, 1945. Yeah.
Wow. And he did over 14,000 readings.
14,000. Yes.
Which
And
is amazing.
Gladys wrote them all down. Have you ever been to ARE down in Virginia Beach?
No, I haven't, but I know you have. So tell everybody all about it.
It's it's a pretty amazing story, actually. Now that back at it's pretty incredible. It's one of those stories of your life. You're like, wow, that's a pivotal moment. I was invited down there by the committee there, Association of Research Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, which I'd never been to, and it was a hard place to get to. I remember 2 or 3 planes I had to take. This is many years ago, probably close to 20 years, 17 years, I think. Time's not good. And so I got there late, I think on a Friday or something, and the event was, I was doing a benefit for the ARE because I believed in Cayce, because that's the first person by the way, let me go back and say, when I was living in Los Angeles and going to the bookstore, they had what they called ARE, Association Research Enlightenment study groups. So I belonged to I formed a study group in Hollywood when I first moved there, did about the readings for Edgar Cayce. That's when I first started.
Wow. So you were really called towards him.
There was something resonated really strongly with me with him. I just
Yeah.
felt this connection. So then I went down to Virginia Beach, and I got to the Days Inn something motel. And one of those, we opened the door, it's mildew because of the beach is right there. Virgos, if you don't care for that. So I slept outside. No, I didn't sleep outside. So the next day I did the event. We had over 500 people, and it was a small room, but capacity size. And they were very nice people. But I was thinking to myself, why didn't his grandson, I think his name was Cayce, come in and thank me? Because it was really just kind of when I'm to benefit the association. I was just thinking of that. Of course, it's much bigger than that. But it kind of upset me because, integrity and that sort of thing. So I went to bed that night. Sunday morning, I had to get up at 5 o'clock for the airport. So they're going to drive me to the airport, and you do 3 planes back. So I remember probably was like, and I never sleep well before a trip. I just don't. But I think it was like 4:30ish, I guess, or 4:45. And I'm coming awake, and I'm aware of this being at the end of the bed, standing there at the end of the bed. And it was Edgar Cayce. I knew it was Edgar Cayce. He had long arms, and a white coat, doctor's coat, and he was carrying another coat. I'm like, "You're Edgar Cayce," and he said, "Yes." And he said, "I want to thank you." It was all telepathic.
Right.
"I want to thank you for coming down here and benefiting my association, Dr. Van Prague." I said, "I'm not a doctor." He comes to the side of the bed and he hands me a coat. He goes, "Yes, you are. You've healed many hearts."
Oh my gosh.
He said, "By the way, you have
Wow.
arthritis in your left knee. Please refer to treatment number." And he gave me the number of the reading. And
Wow.
I gave it to the lady who was driving me to the airport. And a week later, sure enough, she sent me the remedy, and I got it, and I tried it. It was fine. It worked. And a couple of other Edgar Cayce, when I was down there also, well, before I left, when I was down there, right before I went on stage that Saturday, with my friend Jordy, and we're sitting in like a vestibule area, waiting to go on. And the lady who was taking care of us, she came over, she said, "Would you like to sit on the couch? Like the couch, the trans couch?" I was like, "The couch?" She goes, "The couch." I said, "Yes, where is it?" She goes, "It's right here." And it was right in front of me. And it was just wooden, brown, dark wood, mahogany with a green cushion, probably about 2 inches thick. And she said, "You can lie down on it." Now, of course, I don't think they would let that. So she left the room, and I lay down on the couch, and my friend Jordy took a photograph. And you wouldn't believe this, but there's me lying there, and underneath me is all white light.
Wow.
All white light underneath it.
Wow.
Pretty amazing place.
That's
And
amazing. What an
so
experience.
some experience. It really was some experience. And then him with a coat, the jacket, that was amazing too. That was an incredible moment.
Did Edgar Cayce start working with you after that?
Yes. So it's many years. I was working at Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, and probably about, I'd say maybe 8 years after that. I really wasn't paying attention to what, who was coming in, what was going out. I was doing a week-long workshop at Omega, and at the end of it, there are some workshops where I go into an altered state or a light trance, I'd say. And it's really that they move me in such a way, the mind, that I have to do this for the people who are there, and just, it kind of sums up the whole week, I guess. And so when you go to a trance state, we should do a show on trance, by the way.
Okay, I'll write it down.
And your mind is taken to a space. It's almost like you're in a different room. And the more vulnerable, the more open you are, the more you can receive. And I just put myself as an open, just open me up here. And I just, they came through me, and I've had Zulu warriors come through. I've had more people. I've had, angels, highly spiritual guides. I've had beings that do not have physical traits like we would know them. And remember, they were working on people's energy systems, energy centers, if you will. It's so different, like waves of energy. And I remember once there was talk about remedies, or talk about this can help you.
Mhm.
I said, and before, and I mentioned to the group, I'm not a doctor, so if something goes through, it's not just warning them, not warning them, but telling them what's going on. And I remember once it was definitely herbs, Edgar Cayce, and I was like, "Well, where Edgar Cayce, big man?" I said, "Is Edgar with you?" And it was like I was hearing it from a different room. And it was really interesting. All health stuff with Edgar Cayce came through, all of it. And I didn't know at the time it was Edgar Cayce until afterwards when the people told me, it's like, oh, that's Edgar Cayce. That's exactly what that sounds like. Edgar Cayce.
Wow, and that's how Edgar Cayce started. I mean, he would be able to work with somebody as a psychic medium and giving them information, and it might be information that from such a high place that the person may not understand it. So then what he would do is he would work on them with the physical. He would start to give, then he would give physical. Well, it's your liver, it's your spleen.
Right.
And he was also one of the first to start saying it's because you're angry at this. So isn't that interesting? He would go to the emotional place, the body, and then go to the spiritual because he felt that it had to be mind, body, and soul, and it had to be everything. Is that what you were going to say?
Like I'm not
Oh
going
my God.
mind-body connection. He was the very
Yes.
first one. That the thoughts that you
Right.
have, he would often say the conditions of the mind. The conditions of the mind, which is so important because that's where everything starts. And it ends up at the physical. The last place it ends up is the physical body. So the physical body is a representation of all your thoughts. And that's
Right.
really what we want to get across. And his readings are still great for people to go research. Dated a little bit, but you can get the essence for sure. You know, and amazing he grew up with a very Christian background too.
Well, in fact, it's such a Christian background that he said there were two things when he would when he would do readings. He said there were two things that if it ever happened, I would stop. He said the first one was if I ever harmed somebody, and the second thing is if it conflicted with his Christian background. And so then what happened is as he was talking about reincarnation, Edgar Cayce had to really come to some biblical place there because he read the Bible fully once a year. So he really had such a spiritual place with that, but he had to reconcile. But reincarnation seemed to be a big one for him, and then he overcame that and really understood reincarnation from a biblical place.
Well, I think he went to soul. It's because I think he went on to more it's the soul experiences.
Totally went to the soul experience.
Because in
Totally.
religion, he was indoctrinated into that mindset.
Right.
But I think he went to a higher level of the overall soul. The soul.
That's exactly what happened.
About the oversoul quite a bit as well. It was great. The coding, the oversoul, that wisdom, that knowledge, higher self, if you will. Yeah.
Well, you know, I always do. He always would read auras, and one of the things that he said is before you get on. He talked about getting in an elevator. Always look to see if other people you can see their auras, because if their auras are there, then you're safe. So I took that a little further, and when I fly, I get on a plane and I go, let me see. Oh yeah, no, we're not going to go down. We're fine.
Oh, I've done it.
I've done this with you. Well, there.
and Robert and I did it in New York. We went. She came from London. I was doing a course in Omega. Went down, met her in New York City. Would take a Delta flight out to LA, I think it was. And I stepped on the plane, literally. And she'll tell you this. She'll say, "Oh, you're crazy." Well, stepped on the plane. I said, "Oh, it's a sick plane. We're not getting out of here." And she said, "Just go to your seat." And 4 hours later, we were out there still and had to get off the plane. And she goes, you're sick. I said, yeah. So we had to get our bags, and they didn't have our bags because the bags were still on the flight that's going to Minneapolis now. So we had nothing, and we had to go. And then there was a bomb scare. We went to it. We said, let's have a glass of wine. So
I remember that when that happened.
A glass of wine.
You guys called me.
We were both exhausted from work, going on what's going next. And it was really amazing. I think it was a bottle of wine. And I think it was, we were ready to go. And the waitress said, sorry, you can't leave. There's a bomb scare. I was like, what?
This is terrible. Terrible.
Yes, we stayed at a hotel, and the next day found a JetBlue flight and came back. And what it was, the bomb scare was the Olympics. And it was a starter pistol that someone was watching television in the airport. And they said, they heard it, said, a bomb. And that's what happened.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. This is a good question. Hi, Renee Hounsel. Did Cayce work with the Akashic records as well?
I was just going to mention that. I was just going to mention that before. Thanks for reminding me, honey. He did. He used to read the soul's history, and oftentimes there'd be certain conditions that soul would come to be treated for. And then Cayce I think him and his beings, if you will, because I think so was others as well, went to the Akashic records, if you will, a library of the soul. Could pull it out and look at it. I've seen Akashic records, actually. Yeah. And the Hall of Records. And they would say in this lifetime, these conditions are there because, and it could be some other lifetimes, a treatment that happened, a behavior that happens. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. One thing I just loved is when they would ask Edgar Cayce, how do you become psychic? He would always say the same thing: become more spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's very true. It's true.
Simple and correct.
Surrender. Surrender.
Surrender. Right.
Surrendering to your highest self is really
Right.
what it
Right.
is.
And he also worked from 5 categories. So these were the 5 categories that Edgar Cayce worked with:
Okay.
health-related information,
Okay.
philosophy and reincarnation,
Uh-huh.
okay, dreams and dream interpretation. He
And a
was
lot of work.
really into that,
Some great
right?
books about his dream work. Great books.
Yes.
Very much
So,
so.
and ESP and psychic phenomena,
I have all these books, yes.
and spiritual growth, meditation, and prayer, because
Did not
that was everything for him, he said.
have to buy a new book.
All right. I just found this one that I had, James. This was, I don't know if you have this one, but Edgar Cayce and the Old Testament.
Wow, I don't think I do.
I know.
That's a rare one.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Stand by. I'm looking at your
Are you going to go look for yours?
Mine's right here.
Good for you. Well,
Some of them, but they're all over my house, so.
when people would come to see him, he could talk to, he called them discarnate spirits. He could
Right.
talk to them, he could see them, he could hear them. He also could hear people's thoughts. So when you walked in a room, as he was awake, he could hear what was going on, and he would then just take it from there, wherever, whatever he needed to do at that time. Interesting.
Talk about 100% surrender. Going into a trance state, altered state, is 100%, really 100% surrender. Many of my mental mediumship students, they say, first just do really a trance class and really release and let yourself go into that state of just receptivity and surrender and stillness. I still talk about sitting in the stillness of your being, because that's it.
And what he would do is he would tap into the universal consciousness. It was really quite phenomenal.
And why can't any of us do that? We all can do that.
Yes. Yeah.
We just don't take the time to do that. And sometimes it takes a physical problem we have to stop and do that. Many of my friends, I've had some friends, many, three or four of them, who had physical problems, like broke a leg or had a hip thing or that, because, and I kept on saying, you're going too fast, slow down, moderation. And it took that to happen for them to stop, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
it. You gotta be
Oh,
careful.
for sure. For sure. Oh gosh. He has some great quotes too. So one of them I have to say is, there is so much good in the worst of us and so much bad in the best of us. It doesn't behoove any of us to speak evil of the rest of us.
That's great. Never heard that. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Wow. I remember he was a tall man with, I remember thinking, God, his arms, he's lanky. He's lanky. So I remember like his arms, his hands were down under his hips. It was like long arms. I remember that, and thin man. And he
The
had glasses.
glasses. And the first time I ever saw him, and how I got just really, I don't know what's the right word, attached to him, or to learning everything I could about him, was years and years and years ago, because I saw a picture of him. And the picture apparently was one a photographer took that he just loved, that favorite picture of him, that famous picture of him, though you probably have it. But he looked just like my grandfather.
Wow.
Exactly like him. And so when I looked at him, I thought, wow, do I know him? It's really interesting.
Wow.
Fascinating guy.
He says, the spirit is the life, the mind is the builder. It's a good one. I didn't tell you this. When I was 10 years old, I remember this pretty well. I think I was in my mother's house, and it was an afternoon around 12:30, 1 o'clock. And I was on a lunch break from school, I think. And she always had the television on. I remember there was something on about a biography, and I sat down and watched it because I was fascinated. It was Edgar Cayce's story. And I remember it was black and white, and they're talking about they showing a lot of still photography. And I'm like, and I'm just remembering this today when I was thinking Edgar. And it was about his life story. And I was fascinated. I was enthralled by this. And I was like sitting in front of the television like this. And and I was lying down kid.
And you were young when you were 10? Yeah.
Oh, yes. And I think I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of milk on the carpet. And she's like, you can't do that. You got to sit, you know. And I remember that. And it was Edgar Cayce's story. And I was fascinated by it. Remember that. Yeah.
Wow. So interesting. He says, Edgar Cayce says, individuals do not meet by chance. They are necessary in the experience of others, though they may not always use their opportunities in a spiritual way or manner.
It's very true.
That's a good one. And my favorite was, birth in the physical is death in the spiritual. death in the physical is birth in the spiritual.
It's true. That's like that Native American saying that we talk about often. You know,
Yeah.
in your world, you cry and everyone's happy. When you leave, everyone cries and you're happy.
Right. Now, you know what? Renee Hansel brings up a good point. She says there's quite a few similarities between Edgar Cayce and Swedenborg.
Very true.
Right?
Very much so. I wonder if you will. And there's a great one, Renee. I think you know about this. The young man who has beautiful eyes. He's like these gorgeous green blue eyes, and he talks a lot about Swedenborg. So if you go on YouTube, you can see him. You'll see his eyes, and he really knows so much about Swedenborg. And I have some of the books, but that's very, very similar. You're right. Very much the same mindset.
Right.
It's a good point.
Good point on that. Wow. This week is the perfect time to do that inward work, to go in and really start to feel yourself. What are you about? What is going on inside of you? This is such a good.
You said that life coach that's on right now, and that Wednesday's the first call. You said this was a perfect time.
Perfect time
before we get on.
Yeah, no, it's really the perfect time for that. If you want to take this class, this is an amazing time. If you're drawn to this, it would be a great class because it does help you in all areas of your life.
Here's a good question from Samuel Thomas. I would love to know, is there a difference between oracle and a channel medium? There doesn't seem to be much clarity from my research. I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay. There we go. Number one, we got to be careful not to get caught up with labels. Right? Get caught up with labels. So it's all intuitive. We can say it that way. So a medium is channeling energy, and it's almost like a piano keyboard. What notes are you playing? So you can play the lower notes, or you can play the higher notes. So that's medium, the channel. You're channeling. You're bringing through energy. So an oracle to me would be someone who can use that psychic, intuitive information and choose to bring through universal truths, things that might happen in the future of the three-dimensional world, or talk about the past. So that could be that as well. Does that describe it more?
It does. It's perfect. And don't forget, this Friday you're doing an evening of psychic readings.
You're right. Thanks for reminding. Kelly reminded me that before, and I was like, "Am I? I forgot."
I know you're busy this Friday.
Psychic readings for people, and it'll be a fast. Last time I did about 25, 30. It was like,
wow.
And it's funny because I say to people, it's just it's for everyone that joins a group. It's not just for one person. One person will get answered, but usually the spirit world work with the general in terms that everybody can apply it to their own life in some way. And you've seen me do it before. That's how they
for sure.
And they couch it that way, so everybody can relate to it who goes to that space. It's interesting
Right.
how the spirit world holds the space for the two different nights, the mediumship and the psychics. It's a different set of guides who work with me for the psychic readings. Very different set of guides that work with me with the mediumship. It's really interesting.
And when you do the psychic, you would need to hear the person's voice.
I want to hear the voice that helps you tune right in. And sometimes I have a piece of paper that a pad, I'll just tune into it centers me, grounds me, and get right very fast. So quick. And a lot of times the humans can't keep up with it.
But it's great. I've seen you do it. It's so much fun. Such a great night. And people really get a lot of information.
Yeah, they do. So it's February. Yes, it's Friday. So please join me.
So what a week to do this, James. You're going to have a busy week.
Valentine's Day today. I mean, we're starting.
Valentine's Day. It's unbelievable. Get ready for that full moon on Wednesday and for Venus and Mars to take off. So this is quite a week. Moonbeams. That's it. And thank you, James. And thank you, Edgar Cayce.
Thanks, Edgar. Appreciate it. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Renee. See you next week, everybody.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
That was great. Maybe we changed some lives.
And maybe opened up some minds.
Which way do I turn?
Right. I mean left.